Welcome to the 21st week of the In Times Like These recap. Now, let's get into this. Starting with Vanessa Dorval, who gets another disturbing text at the high school, unaware that it's coming from Kiev Burke. Kiev walks up to Vanessa, making her jump. He goes on to tell her how he noticed her speaking with Max Russo during the Haitian Flag Day cookout at the Dorval estate. Just as Max is mentioned, he approaches the two, enraging Kiev. Max goes on to apologize for the previous altercation with Kiev, but Kiev refuses to forgive Max. Once Kiev is gone, Max wonders how many people in the school still see him as a monster. Vanessa reminds Max that since he's a born-again Christian, he can go to God with his problems. On top of that, she's certain that those around Max will see how different his newfound faith has made him. When Vanessa walks off, Yvette Mitchell runs into Max. Nichelle Torres approaches her younger sister Yulissa at school, apologizing for allowing their father Devante to tear the family apart. Yulissa forgives her sister, but right before Nichelle informs Yulissa about reuniting with Zeke Franklin, Yulissa is caught by surprise when she sees Zeke kissing her older sister. Yulissa warns Zeke that just because she's saved doesn't mean she's soft. She goes on to tell him that she's not looking forward to drying the tears he gives to Nichelle. Finnegan Burke shows up to his lover, Harley Drake's, room in Theodosius's palace. Harley informs him that Devante forced her to be his lawyer, threatening Alan's life. When she's unsure of how Alan and the Russos will handle the truth, Finnegan assures Harley that everything will be all right. As Isidore Russo checks in on Isabel Torres at Theodosius Palace after Devante was found guilty for taking Elvira's life, Alan surprises the both of them. Sensing that his son is up to no good, he demands that Alan leave. Dr. Terry Burke arrives at the hotel, stumbling across the confrontation. Alan goes on to reveal to Isabel that he attempted to take over Theodosius's palace. He adds that Isidore knew all along and initially agreed to help him, upsetting Isabel. Pacho Torres arrives at Vivian Jones's apartment. As she states that going after the Russo equates to going after what belongs to her, Pacho questions what she means. Vivian isn't ready to reveal to Pacho that she's Lorenzo Russo's illegitimate daughter. She goes on to ask Pacho how he feels with Devante going to prison. Pacho explains that he's glad his father will be punished, causing Vivian to ask if Devante mistreated him growing up. Even though Devante never mistreated Pacho, he explains to Vivian that the older he got, the more he and his father bumped heads. Changing the subject, he asks Vivian what she wants with Russo Jewelers. She informs him that she wants the company. Yet, her only obstacle is Clarice Russo's suspicion of her. Pacho advises Vivian to use that against the Russos, since the Russos are known to battle one another. Max greets Yvette, wondering if she's been trying to ignore him. Since she dropped the charges against him, Yvette tells Max how they have nothing to say to one another. He tells Yvette that he'll start by thanking her for dropping the charges which ended the nightmare, also stating that the nightmare could have ended more tragically if he ended up taking his life. She tells Max that he's sorry for how much he suffered. Max responds by asking Yvette if she's being genuine. Yvette tells Max that she didn't want him to lose his life. Max points out that she kind of did, since she wanted to take her lie as far as to send him to prison. She tells Max that he's not going to prison, so they should both move on with their lives. The response which Max gives is that she can move on just fine, but states how he won't be able to fully move on if she doesn't admit that she lied. She asks him if he'll go on the rest of his life worrying about what others think of him. Max points out that he would still like to run the business one day and wants to bring it to new heights with his newfound faith. Because of his newfound faith, he tells Yvette that he doesn't hate her, but still hates what she did, hoping that she can make it right. Wanda Mitchell is on the phone with Owen Grant, telling him about how Udell has never stopped blaming her for Elvira's passing. Owen feels like Udell won't ever forget the secret Wanda kept, which he could always use against her in the future. His phone call is interrupted as Heidi Russo enters his office. She goes on to congratulate Owen for prosecuting Devante, then walks off. As she's in her own office, she's on the phone with her husband Gianni, conspiring how the two of them could use Owen and Wanda's friendship against the Mitchells. After hearing Alan's revelation, Isabel slaps Isidore across the face, demanding that he leave the hotel. Once Isabel storms off, Isidore scolds Alan for what he's done, pretty much wishing that he were never born. Terry overhears this, then checks up on Alan, who claims to be okay. Just as she tries to comfort him, the two look into one another's eyes, then kiss. Terry demands that Alan never do that again, but the kiss leaves them both conflicted. Right after Terry thinks back to her kiss with Alan, Keeve and Finnegan arrive at her new apartment. When Keeve leaves the room, Finnegan reminds Terry that she could have kept the house if she wasn't trying to take full custody of Keeve to begin with. Since Terry is so distrusting of Finnegan, especially after finding out that she helped Dante Russo end his life, Finnegan asks her how she plans to actually find someone else to be in a relationship with. Terry tells her ex-husband how everyone doesn't move on as fast as he does. This causes Finnegan to wonder if Terry is jealous of Harley. She tells Finnegan that he'd be jealous by the very person who would try and pursue her. Finnegan goes on to ask Terry who she's talking about. Terry tells Finnegan that she's done talking with him, telling him that this is a suitable apartment for her and Keeve, and that he can pick up Keeve on his time. He goes on to tell Terry that he does hope that she doesn't close her heart to any other man, leaving her apartment. At the Dorval estate, Vanessa reads a text from her stalker, unaware that it's Keeve. JJ walks in, noticing how nervous his sister seems. Vanessa tries to claim that she's not nervous, but JJ reminds his sister that lying is a sin. She tells her brother not to worry about her. Hearing this causes JJ to begin to worry. Then Vanessa explains to him that the same person who sent her the rose keeps sending her texts. JJ suggests that she's being stalked, but Vanessa refuses to believe it. As Keeve is in his room, he tells himself that Vanessa can't go on ignoring him forever. Vivian enters Lorenzo's office, then grabs a file, proud that she found the file that carries the number of shares the Russo family has to Russo Jewelers. After seeing how many shares each family member holds, she decides to go after Clarice's shares first, since she feels like Clarice is the reason why she lost out on her birthright. During Devante Torres' sentence, Wanda, Lorenzo, and Clarice make statements against him. After the statements are made, Devante is sentenced to life in prison. At her apartment, Terry receives a call from Alan, wanting to discuss their kiss. Terry wants to pretend like it didn't happen, but Alan tries to tell Terry that they're both adults, even though there's a big age gap between them. Alan goes on to apologize if he made Terry uncomfortable, but tells her that she has the option to save his number and that he'd be willing to answer anytime. Once the call ends, Terry struggles. Since Ben doesn't want his family asking questions, he and Quinlan sneak outside of the courtroom. Since it's clear that Devante will spend the rest of his life in prison, Ben feels like it's the right time to visit Elvira's grave, asking Quinlan if she wants to tag along. At first, Quinlan is reluctant, but Ben feels like it's fitting since she had a hand in getting Elvira justice. She agrees, then kisses Ben before they walk off. What the couple was unaware of was that Ben's mother Heidi saw them kissing. Gianni approaches Udell and Wanda as the couple congratulates him for getting justice. He appreciates that, then reminds them that his son hasn't gotten justice over what their daughter did to Max. Just as Udell and Wanda attempt to walk past Gianni, he tells the couple how Yvette can't get away with what she did forever, just like Devante couldn't. Angered, Wanda scolds Gianni for comparing Devante to her daughter. Gianni understands that Yvette never took Max's life, but points out that her actions could have cost Max his life, just like Devante took Elvira's life. He goes on to say that Elvira would be rolling in her grave over their reluctance to make Yvette do the right thing. Annoyed, Wanda tells Gianni that Elvira never liked anyone speaking for her in life, and wouldn't want anyone speaking for her in the grave. Gianni is puzzled to hear Wanda defending Elvira since she married Elvira's soulmate. Annoyed, Udell reminds Gianni that he and Elvira were already over before she lost her life. Gianni points out that before Elvira was alive, she wanted Udell to give her another chance, questioning if Udell wouldn't give Elvira another chance. Even though Udell tells Gianni how they can't just wonder about what could have happened over 20 years ago, Gianni points out that it could have happened. He goes on to ask Udell to admit that he'll never love Wanda as much as he loved Elvira. Udell spits out about how hurt he was by Elvira's actions because she was the love of his life. Wanda becomes emotional, then rushes out, falling into Owen's arms in tears. Before Devante is hauled off to prison, his family comes to say goodbye. His first step of saying goodbye is ensuring that Nichelle received the document naming her as the new owner of Theodosius's palace. Even though Isabel appreciates Devante's actions, she asks her husband how he expects their teenage daughter to run an entire hotel. Devante assures Isabel that he doesn't expect Nichelle to run Theodosius's palace right now. In fact, he expects Isabel to run the hotel until Nichelle is able to. As for Pacho, Devante asks his son to get out of his sight, which Pacho gladly does. Once Pacho is gone, Devante reveals to the rest of the family that he'll be making an appeal. This disgusts his family, then they walk out on him one by one. Can't get enough of the crazy world of In Times Like These? Then treat yourself to a binge watch of In Times Like These. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. You're not ready for what's to come, but tune in anyway.